Porter is a jazz saxophonist and composer and innovator and band leader. He's recorded quite a lot of albums as a leader. His first album was in 1959. His most recent was in 2018. He's been involved with other people that I've heard of. He's been involved with Art Blakey, Miles Davis. Practically everybody's heard of Miles Davis, and the fusion band Weather Report. And many times he has been voted the best saxophonist by some saxophonist magazine, the name of which I cannot. Hi, my name's Dan. So, as you might expect, this is an album of jazz. We've got here Wayne on a tenor sax. We've got drums. We've got an acoustic upright bass, double bass, and a piano. And the piano's being played by Herbie Hancock, who you may have heard of. And they're doing the standard thing, which is play a tune and then do some improvisation and then probably play the tune again at the end to kind of bookend it. And what usually happens in these kind of jazz circumstances is that there's a chord sequence and then so they play again, repeated over the chord sequence. However, it's it's not what I'd call free jazz, but they are stepping out of the confines of harmony enough that it's not necessarily easy to say whether they are following the chord sequences in between. And whilst I listened to this, I had an interesting thought, which is that jazz has at its heart, for a lot of it, this idea of improvisation. And I applaud that. I like the idea of music being improvised and being, spontaneous and in the moment, etc. But it did strike me that there's kind of maybe a little bit of a conflict there between the idea of improvisation and the idea of recording. Because when you record something, you get the same rendition of it over and over again every time you listen to it. So obviously there has been and there is a market for recorded jazz, but I kind of want to gently moot the idea that actually jazz is more at home when it's being played live and you're listening to it live, because what you're going to hear is going to be different every time you have it. That then led me into some weird thoughts about, wow, what would you have to do in order to make a recording so that it was different every time? But of course, we don't have the technology for that yet. Back to this album. So most of it is the sax focus. So Wayne is the leader here. He's the only person really with a tune instrument apart from the piano, which can do some tune. So most of it is about the sax and his soloing, which is pretty decent soloing, I would say. It's all right. But in that sense, the sound becomes quite, it's the same kind of all the way through. There are different rhythms and different tunes obviously being there, but it's, there's a sort of homogeneity to the whole thing. Apart from there's some little bits where you get piano solos, and that's quite nice. And of course, being Herbie Hancock, they're very competent. Wayne Shorter's very competent on the saxophone as well. So it's, as I said, it's not free jazz, but it's I don't know if this is what you might call cool jazz, but it's certainly going out of the concept of key. I couldn't tell you by listening to it whether this is modal jazz or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was. And the obvious thing here is that although I've listened to some jazz, I'm by no means an expert. So I'd love it if anybody does know more about jazz to explain to me in the comments down below why this album and not one of many other, to my mind, similar jazz albums has made it onto this list of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time. For my mind, it's perfectly fine for background, and I might stick it on whilst I was working, or even driving. or, you know, if you want to feel sophisticated at a dinner party, that sort of thing. That's it from me for now.